Welcome to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. Happy holidays to all of you. Sunday games as well. I know those of you who are still in this thing have some big decisions to make. And George, once again, happy holidays to you. You know, I got to tell you, I love doing the show. We've been at this now about 20-something weeks, here, talking fantasy football, you and I. But now I'm doing the show, for everyone out there. I want to do it for me too. I'm out. I'm done. I'm knocked out in both my leagues. Like I enjoy doing the show because I get to make decisions with you and with Sam. But now all the decisions I'm making is for everybody watching out there. And I understand that that's part of the job. But I'm a little sad. I gotta tell you, I'm a little sad that I'm playing a third place game. Get a few bucks or something like that. But I guess I'm the Grinch here on Fantasy Sports Today.
It is sad when you're eliminated, by the way. It is, because you and I are big baseball guys, right? If you're out in football, you still got really 2 months for really baseball draft season picks up here, so it gets a little sad there. I have 4 leagues still alive. One's a total points league, so of course that one's still alive till the end of the year. The weird one, Greg, is the league I think I mentioned for you. I'm a big believer that in leagues, the last playoff team should be a team not with the best record, but that has the most points that didn't make the playoffs. Well, in one league, that cost me a spot, and another league, that gained me a spot. And the league that gained me a spot, I was 6-8, but I won last week, so I'm still alive there. I'm playing the first place team though this week. Obviously, they had the bye, and Craig, I'm going to get slaughtered. All right, I'm going to get crushed. That's Josh Allen and company there. I am dead. And I know I'm dead, but that's okay. I can prepare for that and start taking some chances here on players who I'm going to start here. But I'm going to be toast in that league.
Yeah, you never know. New England may come strong this week. 14-point favorites.
I hope so.
We can't count on that stuff. All right. So the Saturday football games, a good slate ahead of us here. Looks like Patrick Mahomes is good to go, cleared to play, which is surprising based off what we saw last week. Garrett Wilson, the Jets are definitely playing better football, but he's a little non-committal on his future. I think the Jets are non-committal on everyone there. What a disaster it has been for them this season. For the New Orleans Saints, Alvin Kamara may have got you to the fantasy football playoffs, but it doesn't look like he's going to be there for the rest of the season. He is out, and so is their quarterback in Spencer Rattler as the Saints season comes to a halt. And that's one of those games too, George, that it's going down to Monday Night Football. You really can't take the chance for anybody playing. And obviously some of these guys are placed on IR, and it doesn't matter there. So it looks like season's coming to an end too. And then one of the other bigger stories going on right now in fantasy football is the San Francisco 49ers running back situation just keeps on throttling around. We're down to like the 7th string running back playing for the 49ers this week too. So it's been one of those years where some of the players that got you there are not really going to help you, I think, going into the week.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm a big believer in fantasy. It's survival of the fittest. A lot of the teams that are going to win are because they stayed healthy, right? Their stars didn't get hurt. So they were able to start those guys. So good for you, right? That's half the battle here. It's why when it comes draft time, I try and stay away from players, or at least I don't draft multiple players who get hurt every damn year. The most important ability is availability in fantasy football, and we need that. We just need that here. No Christian McCaffrey, really for the entire year. Just killed a lot of teams right off the bat, right? Your first round pick, you got him for like 2 games, and then he's gone. So it can be frustrating, no doubt. It makes you want to throw things against the wall and get angry, but most of us have to deal with it, right? Most of us have to deal with injuries. It's why we always say get depth. It's so important in fantasy.
Yeah, in the Saturday games, at least we do have some clarity because you can make decisions on Saturday because you know the players are playing or not. You can sub in different players. Patrick Mahomes looks like he is a go for the game coming up on Saturday, while Alvin Kamara, as we mentioned, is going to be out. But the other player that could be out, and it looks like it, George, on Saturday is George Pickens, and the Steelers' offense certainly doesn't operate well without him. But, I'm not sure that Pickens was a huge help for a lot of people during the fantasy football season, George, and he certainly wasn't a help being out last week as well. So, pretty simple pivots there. But that's the one benefit to having these NFL games on Saturday. I don't love the Thursday stuff. But when they do start up those games on Saturday, you can at least make those decisions before you get to Sunday, as opposed to anything going on in that Green Bay game on Monday night against the Saints.
Agreed. Saturday gives you a couple extra days. Obviously, it's better. This game's going to start in about 4 or 5 hours here. I wish it would Really wish they would start at 4:30, right? Not 1 o'clock. Just give me a little bit more time to get things done today. But it is what it is. I know there's a lot of bitching going on because it's also college football playoffs there, and they're starting at noon, and then they're going up against each other. Everybody's yelling and complaining. Hey, folks, it's a great football day. Whether you like college, you like the NFL, you like both, it's a great football day. You love football all day, right, from noon on. So I'm not so sure why we're all complaining here. It is what it is. Well, what do the NFL think college is going to do? Have these games on a Thursday night? Well, you're going up against the NFL anyway. Wednesday? Friday? Of course they were going to do Saturday. So I don't know what all they're complaining about here. Just it should be a very good football day today.
Yeah, is this the biggest football day of the season? Saturday? Do you think it is?
I mean, you certainly can make an argument for it, right? Football day, not NFL day. I would probably have to say yes, right? It's the only day that we're going to get college and NFL, right? So I'm going to give you.
Well, we've gotten that in the
yes
past.
there.
No, we've gotten that in the past, but it was basically games that were bowl games that were played during the day. They didn't, and by the way, the easy bowl games, the games that started off that really nobody cared about, but now,
you could say,
yeah, right, yeah. I mean, you said it, not me. So yeah, so the college football playoffs with the NFL has created a monster. It's basically trying to, for me especially, trying to get in 2 straight football days, George, with my family. It's not easy to do. I mean, sometimes I can reserve those for Sunday, but the fact that we have the biggest college football games of the season being played Saturday, Steelers Ravens, which is always one of the biggest games of the season in the NFL, it's today too, and then of course you have the Chiefs playing. So yeah, I mean the only other thing that I would say, for me, on Wednesday is Christmas Day. It's also the first day of Hanukkah, and I'll be working here at SportsGrid. And that day, George, normally was a day that was not reserved for the National Football League. And I wonder, in your opinion, these games that we're going to see on Saturday, if teams are going to hold anything back, knowing they got to turn this thing around and play next Wednesday. By the time we come back on the air next week, George, we're going to have all of those games on Christmas Day already in the books. I don't recall us being on this network on Fantasy Sports Today outside of Thanksgiving, having this many games played before we hit the air next week.
Yeah, the NFL's they just decided to take everything over, right? Christmas Day used to be for the NBA, right? I said, nah, you guys are done. Nice. Now they're going to take it over there too. For me, when it comes to college, one of the reasons why I don't, most people who follow know that I'm not a big college guy here. The reason is what you mentioned, Craig. How do I explain to my wife, kids, yeah, Saturday and Sunday both done? And by the way, I decided this way before I got married, by the way. Saturday was, okay, if I'm going to go on a date, it has to be on a Saturday, back in the day. All right. And Sunday was going to be football, NFL. There's nothing I can do about it. Didn't care. But Saturday was going to be date night, maybe Friday, whatever it was going to be. So that's really a big part of this why I never got into college. As far as the games here, I mean, Kansas City needs to play, right? They only have a 2-game lead over Buffalo, and Buffalo wins that tiebreak if they are tied there. So I think it's part of it why they're pushing forward to try and beat Houston. Houston has nothing to play for. And Baltimore, Pittsburgh, what a game. Pittsburgh loses this, they're not going to win that division.
Yeah, I think it's the strangest point spread of the week, too, given the fact that these two teams play so close every single time they play. It almost feels like not having Pickens has made this line a point or two different. That player is not somebody that I would have considered having that kind of impact on the game, but it did last week against the Eagles, and maybe it does this week against the Ravens. We'll see, as the Ravens are almost a touchdown favorite, 6.5. All right, going back to Thursday night football, what a fun night it was. Chargers and Broncos, 61 points scored between the two teams. Wasn't a huge fantasy day for anyone in the game, but just enough for us to get into it next.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out and just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this. I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text. Put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, "Hey, I never got the text." And I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. He texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe. Like, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards.
That was
Lincoln!
But he had that program was already going there.
Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Turned out to be a great Thursday night football game between the Broncos and Los Angeles Chargers. Broncos went up early. Chargers closed it out late, 34-27 the final. So those of you who are playing in the Fantasy Football Championship or the semis, depending on your kind of league format, let's go over some of the winners from that game. George, surprisingly, not a ton of winners. I mean, was Ladd McConkey like the biggest winner of this game as your wide receiver 3 based on where you put him? I think maybe so. You would expect with 61 points that we would be talking about somebody who was a superstar in this game. Look, Gus Edwards had a nice game too, but really, McConkey to me is we could also start like pivoting a little till next year too. He's really become a go-to guy for Justin Herbert. Herbert, who threw a couple of touchdown passes, but didn't throw for 300 yards, also threw an interception. So no great shakes with him either. And we'll get into Denver as well. But I guess based on your placement of your players, I'm assuming McConkey for most in the playoffs was a wide receiver 3. You got your 14 points. To me, I guess that was the win of the day.
Yeah, because even on the players you mentioned, by the way, who started Herbert? There's no bye weeks. One quarterback league, I don't think it started Herbert against Denver. No one saw this many points coming. I was on the under. I was very, very wrong. At least they got that out of the way early, that I knew I wasn't going to win that. Bo Nix probably didn't start. Gus Edwards probably didn't start for a lot of teams. Yeah. So your winner really is by, process of elimination, McConkey. He probably did start for most teams. Maybe not all, but probably did start for most teams here, and he had your 14 points. So, yeah, he's your winner here. But other than that, fantasy-wise, this was a dud. But it was going to be a dud coming in no matter what, because we didn't expect points to be scored. These guys weren't going to start for your fantasy team in in a traditional league, a one quarterback league, a super flex or a 2 quarterback league. Well, then you did start Nix, you did start Herbert, and you did okay. I believe Herbert got the 20s there, and Nix, I think Herbert was mid to late 20s, and Nix was low 20s here. So then you paid off there. But in one quarterback leagues, this was a dud night.
Yeah, no, it was. And I think George said it best. A lot of points, but very little fantasy points, too. Let's go over to Denver here for a minute. So we'll go through it. Bo Nix threw for 263 and 2 touchdowns. In a 2-quarterback league, sure. 1-quarterback league, you're like, did you really start Bo Nix in this? I doubt it. Cortland Sutton had 6 targets. He had 5 receptions for 50 yards. So, I guess kind of like McConkey, you came out of there. If you had Sutton as your wide receiver 3 in the playoffs with 10 points, you're not all that upset. I think that we have finally quit Javonte Williams. I mean, even in a game where they score a lot of points. I mean, this guy, George, I think he had one good game all season long on a Thursday night, and that was it for the entire season with him. And then Marvin Mims had a nice long catch. He had 3 for 62 in the game, but he really didn't contribute much. So from a Denver point of view, this is kind of who they've been all season, George. Last week they scored a defensive touchdown. This week they scored just enough points to stay in the game. I don't think they're ever going to be genuinely a fantasy juggernaut. But I do think at some point, and I guess that this would go into next year, if the Broncos, to me, George, if they did, look, nothing against the person, Javonte Williams, but he's just not that good. If they ever really got a good running back there in Denver, I would have interest. I do think, especially those early season games that they play at altitude, where they practice in it and then they play in it, Williams just never turned out to be the fantasy star we thought he was going to be. 2 years ago, we were told that the second Melvin Gordon is gone, this guy's going to be a stud. It just never happened.
No, it didn't. Most of us did think he'd be. I'm not telling you, he's going to be a first-round pick in fantasy, but we thought he'd be a solid fantasy running back eventually. It didn't happen. For whatever reason, it didn't happen. And let's face it, their passing game has been better than we thought, right? So it's not like he's been seeing 8-man boxes all season long. He hasn't. So, listen, it is what it is. I think, if you're a Denver fan, you got to be pretty happy about your future. Bo Nix does look like he's going to be that quarterback. He's not going to be Tom Brady or somebody like that, but he'll be a next tier solid quarterback. That's what you want. You can build around him. You get a running back, which can be found. You get a tight end. You get another wide receiver there. Get that offensive line fixed. Not everything can be fixed in one off season here. So they should get better and better and better. I think Denver's heading in the right direction. We know the defense is good. Not so much last night, but it's good. So, I think Denver's got a brighter future ahead than maybe we thought, with the Russell Wilson fiasco and all the salary cap issues. We'll see what they can do this offseason. But Javonte Williams is not – I doubt he's a part of it.
Yeah, the other hot talking point from Thursday night's football game, if you do play kickers, was that fair catch that turned out to be a field goal, 57-yard field goal for Dicker, who's – George, one of the best kickers in the National Football League. He may not get the most points in the league, but he's pretty solid. And having him on your fantasy team this week, that worked out going into the weekend.
Yeah, I was on air with Gabe on SportsGrid last night when that happened, and very proud of myself. I knew the rule, and I'm like, that's a free kick. They can get a free kick out of this. I love when the refs don't know the rule, by the way. I understand we haven't seen it since, I think, in a regular season game since 1976. I remember the Cowboys, by the way. They in a preseason game, I saw them do this, and I knew it was at the end of a half at double zeros on a fair catch. Or in this case, the penalty helped as well here. So I knew the rule. What I wasn't sure about, Craig, was does he get to kick it from the line of scrimmage, or do they still have to snap it and he has to go 70? I wasn't sure about that. I'm like, this is gonna be a 65-yarder free. He might be able to tie the record here. Didn't quite work out that way, but he nailed it, and he nailed it easy. Right, he crushed that ball. So good for LA. And what did Harbaugh say after the game? It's now his new favorite rule in the NFL. I'll bet.
Yeah, of course it is. After not seeing it for 40 years. All right, so plant the flag here, George. Last shot before we get into the weekend. I'm going to give you 3 statements. 4. I think I could do 4 out of this. The Broncos make the playoffs. The Chargers do not. The Chargers make the playoffs. The Broncos do not. Or both make the playoffs. What do you got for those? I got to go 3. I would give you a scenario where both don't. I don't think that's possible. I think one of the two definitely has to get in. So is that head-to-head game last night going to factor into the end? Can the Bengals catch up? Or the Dolphins still alive? Or do we know the AFC? What do you got?
Bengals are still alive. They play the Broncos next week. All right, assuming they beat Cleveland here, and they beat the Broncos next week. Last game of the season is Denver, Kansas City. All right, if that game means something to Kansas City, it could make things very interesting. That being said, I'll take your second statement. All right, that the Broncos and the Chargers make the playoffs. There's too many things have to go right for Cincinnati.
Yeah, no, I do. I think that's the way it's been. I think all this did was give the Bengals a little bit of hope, and there really isn't a lot. All right, the waiver wire has a player you can start this week in fantasy in your playoffs, as crazy as it seems. We'll hit it next.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him Rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. Well, in fantasy football this year, 2024, we did not get, George, a league winner. We did not get that Puka Nacua, that late pickup, week 2, week 3, week 5, week 10. We thought it'd be Jordan Mason. It didn't happen this year. If anyone says that every year that there's a league winner, it just didn't happen. It was Josh Allen, it was Saquon Barkley. There's nobody off the waiver wire is going in the first round next year. It just didn't happen. But that being said, there's actually a player that you could literally pick off the waiver wire this week and start. I did not think that would be coming, George, but it is here as the 49ers are down to their 4th string running back. It is Patrick Taylor, who last week got 50 rushing yards and a touchdown. Isaac Guerrero is out this week in Miami. Teams have had their way with Miami's defense, and therefore he is the hottest pickup in fantasy this week. In the league that I'm playing in for 3rd place, I'm going to grab him. Hey, it's like $100. I may as well. I think he's a must start. I think he's I mean, look, if you got this far, maybe you've done a lot better and you don't have to. But I was wrong. I did not think Guerrero would be that good. I still don't think he's that good, but in fantasy, he was really good. So why wouldn't Patrick Taylor score a touchdown against the Dolphins on Sunday?
Well, sooner or later, I mean, how many good running backs can San Fran have? All right.
A million.
Jeffrey, Mason, Guerrero, Patrick Taylor. I mean, that's a lot for one roster here. I think what we're saying, the system is really good. All right. And I think that's fair. The system is really good. It's made for running backs here. Trent Williams is out also, but the backup to Trent has been playing pretty well, better than I would have thought he would have played. So, I guess as far as that's concerned, it's working out. You mentioned Miami's run defense, not very good, So that's good for fantasy. Yeah, he's startable. Once again, depends on what else you have on your roster. But he's definitely startable. Right. You need a running back. You could do worse. You could do a lot worse than a starting running back on San Francisco. So I'm right there with you. He's on your waiver wire. And by the way, even if you don't need a running back, if I'm playing Craig, screw Craig. He ain't getting him either. If I'm ahead of Craig on the waiver wire, I'm taking
me.
Damn right.
Block me.
Fighting words.
Okay, everybody else here, I don't think is worth adding, but we'll go through it because again, if you're in this spot, you have to be doing better than some of these players. But Dorian Thompson-Robinson in a 2-quarterback league where, I mean, you have to be the most desperate of desperate. A buddy of mine actually texted me last week. It just shows you how desperate he was. He's like, who do I start, Cousins or Winston? I'm like, oh my gosh, really? Thank goodness I gave him Cousins. Not that was much better. I mean, most of the focus here, folks, it's really not on Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who's available in with 2% of leagues. It's probably Michael Penix. I mean, that really is more of at least a question. I personally, George, would not start either of those quarterbacks this week. I would not pick up either of those quarterbacks this week. Penix, in a league where the future is involved in a dynasty, of course, you want to see what he's got. But I don't hold out a lot of hope. And by the way, listening to the Falcons players talk about this, George, I don't know if you saw this. I'm not sure that they hold out a ton of hope that he is going to be much better, Penix is, than Cousins.
Well, it can't be worse. I think that's really the key there, right? Cousins is just, wow. Talk about somebody who lost it quickly, confidence and everything else there. Now, I agree with you. Even in 2 quarterback leagues, I don't want DTR. I don't want Mason Rudolph. Penix, I might think about. They are playing at home versus the Giants. I guess there's something there. Listen, I don't want to. But, hey, I got to tell you, Craig, I had in that one league, the one league gets spanked, I had Mahomes and Geno Smith. And for a while earlier this week, it looked like, oh, boy, I'm screwed. Right? I was going to play at least one of these guys. Ends up being they're both going to start. I'm okay. But I was like, oh, God, Penix, DTR, Mason Rudolph, Drew Lock. I'm looking at all of these guys. I'm like, I am in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. All right. Mac Jones has found his new favorite target. Brenton Strange, tight end on the Jaguars, actually playable. 34 receptions, 44 targets, 329 yards. And then the last player we should just quickly review here is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who had really nice things to say on the way out of Kansas City. Basically, they took care of him all this time when he had PTSD and was not playing. And he's going to be on the Saints roster. I do have him in a league, but there's no possible way going into Monday night, George, that I could take that chance. I'd love to see him play well this week and then throw him in some sort of DFS league maybe the following, but that's more of a monitor for me. I can't start him.
No, Strange is the guy to look at here, these 2 guys. Strange is a decent tight end for you, depending on who else you have there. Nice little replacement for Ingram there. So I would look at Strange, look at him with the injury report, by the way. He's been limited, so we have to make sure he plays here. But Strange is someone you can either pick up or, once again, block somebody.
All right, coming up next, a lot of questions coming for keeper leagues as well. Our focus for the next month will be more on that. We'll go over it next here on Fantasy Sports Today.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The holidays come with a touch of craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Play a decent schedule. They have maybe 500. There's five of us.
That just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all people.
You don't want them to go 13-0 and then lose the first round of the playoffs.
Red.
Yeah, this is their last shot. They don't really have anywhere else to go yet.
Hot take.
By the time I hit, I guess what, Route 33 up here, that ticket's cashing.
Only on SportsGrid.
It's decision-making time for those of you who have been eliminated in keeper leagues, although you don't have to firmly make your decision. It's coming up soon as the football season ends for a lot of you, dynasty leagues as well. George and I have compiled a list of players that maybe we would be talking about, and we'll start off with the quarterback position, and George is on the fence a little bit, it looks like here, with Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals. Now, George, I'm assuming this is not a two-quarterback league, unless he's making a fortune in terms of salary. There's really not a lot to talk about here. Murray's going to end up the season with, close to 4,000 yards. He's probably going to have about 20 touchdowns. In a two-quarterback league, he's a starting quarterback. I guess this is more of a question in a one-quarterback league, 12, 14-team league. Is he your quarterback of the future?
Yeah, I mean, he started off pretty well, right? First, I'd say 8 games, 9 games was good, and then all of a sudden, off a cliff, right? He hasn't played all. He's not running, Craig. Why isn't he running? He'll run to avoid a sack, but he won't run to gain yardage. It's just strange here. And a lot of his value does come with his legs because the man's fast, right? So it's been a little frustrating if you've had Kyler Murray over the last month or so. He's just not getting those points that we need. And he's made Marvin Harrison almost unusable, right? So it's just been a strange last third of the season for the Cardinals here, and something I'll have to go into next season thinking about, do I want to keep him for my last year of keepability? You're right, it's a one-quarterback league. It's 14-team league, so I did have him last year as well. So it's tough because I have other quarterbacks on my roster that I could keep.
All right, now my question will be Trevor Lawrence. It's not much of a question for me, George, because this is a two-quarterback league that I have to decide on, and in all two-quarterback leagues with 12 teams and such, Lawrence is still a keeper. So his contract for me is not all that formidable. I know he's not great. I know it has not worked out. But here's what I'm going to do, George. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to wait to see who they hire as head coach. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to wait to see what direction they go. Are Jaguars going in a rebuild again? Are they adding players like they did a couple of years ago? Remember they signed Christian Kirk to that contract? Everyone was like, wow, that was terrible. He was actually really good in the first year of that contract. England was pretty good. They tried with Etienne. It's not like they did not try, Doug Peterson. They tried. They just failed. And then Lawrence got hurt at the end of the season. I'm going to hold him, but I understand if people are just ready to throw him back in the pool, honestly.
Yeah, a lot of times what most keeper leagues I play in that are keeper leagues, you lose the round you drafted him in. So I have Lawrence from my home team. It's once again 2-quarterback league, but it's I can't keep him next year. We only allowed to keep somebody for 3 years. Keeper league, you only have a time limit, and for us it's 3 years, and this is the 3rd year, so I don't have to make this decision. But if I did, he would have cost me a 6th-round pick, which probably is around where he goes next year, give or take. He may actually go later than that because of what happened. So I probably would throw him back in that scenario, because I can get him anyway, or get someone just like him, and maybe be able to keep somebody else. This would also depend, by the way, do I have somebody else on my roster that I want to keep? I may not, So a lot of questions go into that. I still have hope for Lawrence, Craig. I do, but he's been a frustrating player. It's not all his fault. I freely admit that, but he's been a frustrating player the last couple of years.
Yeah, Urban Meyer, Doug Peterson, he's going to have 3 head coaches since he's been in the NFL starting next year. J.J. McCarthy, George, you have to make a decision on him. This seems like a no-brainer. Wouldn't you want to hang on one more year just to see what he's got here? I don't think we have a clue.
Once again, it depends on league dependent here. It is a 2-quarterback league, so yes, I want to hold on to him. But if I do, what if Sam Darnold comes back? What am I doing here? That's the question here. That's why I put him on this list here. It depends what the Vikings are going to do. At least if Sam Darnold goes, to the Giants, he's not going to the Giants. But if he does, okay, it makes my decision easier. They're going to give the starting job to McCarthy. They got Jefferson. You got Addison who's picked up. Yeah, I'll keep McCarthy pretty easily. But if they sign Darnold, or another top quarterback, that's our free agent, then I'm sort of screwed here. I mean, I can keep McCarthy this next year and the year after. I have 2 more years of eligibility. But he'd be worthless next year for me, and I'm probably not going to do it for the year after. In that league, I do have other players I can keep, mainly wide receivers. I'm strong there that I'd like to keep there. So I would probably throw him back. It depends what Minnesota will do with Sam Darnold.
Yeah, what's funny is some of the speculation is that Darnold will leave and Kirk Cousins will come back as the backup quarterback.
Oh, God, that'd be hilarious.
Could be, not impossible. What's the debate here? You have Malik Neighbors. You're not sure what to do here with Malik Neighbors. You want me to make it easy for you? You keep this guy. Are you crazy? This guy's really good.
He's excellent. But who's quarterbacking next year?
Doesn't matter. He's great.
Oh, it matters.
He's good. He's really
good.
Not
someone he's not someone you got in round 9. All right, the league I have, he's round 4. That's a top pick. That's a top 48 pick.
You gotta keep him. You crazy. Come on.
I would not right now. It depends who they are bringing a quarterback here. Right now, I would not keep it. He's not worth it.
Okay,
You
I'm
can
going to
get
give you the quarterback.
You can get him round
Cam
4
Ward.
anyway.
Cam Ward is the quarterback. Are you keeping him?
Probably not.
Yes.
I have other players to keep.
Stop. You're full of it. You're totally full of it.
Would you like me to tell you the players on my roster I'd keep? What, rookie quarterbacks do so well year one? Would you like me to name you all the rookie quarterbacks who suck?
I think this year, haven't we gotten more good rookies than bad? Am I not wrong about that?
History tells us they don't play very. And by the way, you're assuming the New York Giants can get the best out of Cam Ward year one?
What about Shedeur Sanders?
Same things. The questions are the same here.
Bookmark this show when he keeps Malik Neighbors after they take one of those two. Guaranteed. Lock it in. Not even a question. Career year for Jordan Addison, coming off a good year last year, even better this year. 77 targets, 51 receptions, 771 yards, 7 touchdowns. What's his draft issue for you? Where he was taken, or you want to wait on the quarterbacks and such? He's been really good aside Jefferson.
He's been he could almost be a league winner if he keeps it up, by the way, because this is a guy we didn't expect it from. Yeah, it's the same question. Once again, who's going to be the quarterback there? If it's McCarthy, I think he does take a bit of a hit here. I got to tell you, I'll be a little worried about JJ next year, taking him as a top 3 wide receiver if it's McCarthy. He's still a first round, second round pick, but I'd be a little worried about taking him top end here if, like I said, it's a big if Sam Darnold's not going to be back. I can't believe that.
My decisions are My decisions are much tougher than yours. Like I feel like yours are really easy. I would know what to do. Okay, so I'll give you my easy one. So we'll end with a couple of mine. So DeAndre Hopkins, let's do that first, Sam. DeAndre Hopkins, this is easy cut, right? Like there's nothing to talk about. I'm throwing him back, and somebody else can have him next year. He's at the end of the line, right, George? What do you think? One more year?
Yeah, he hasn't really done all. I mean, maybe an off season with Kansas City, maybe it'll help there. But yeah, he's a throwback.
How about Devontae Adams? He's the most expensive wide receiver in the entire league that I play in. His salary is way high. It's the highest. It's like $70, where no one's 100 in the whole league. My temptation, I can wait on Adams to see where he ends up, but my sense is I'm going to be cutting him too, right?
Once again, where does he end up? Is he staying with the Jets? Is Aaron Rodgers staying? But at $70, yeah, he's almost certainly getting thrown back. He's not worth that value. He's had a great last couple of weeks.
And then Kittle is, I think, the second highest paid tight end in the league. I have a lot of high-paying guys. George Kittle. Have we seen the best of Kittle's career? Is he still on the up, you think, at this point? Or I don't think he matches these numbers you see right here next year.
It's because it's tight end, which scares the life out of me. You've got one who's, you're not going to have to worry about it. He may not put up these kind of numbers, but you're not have to worry. He's going to be good. You're not going to be like, oh, my tight end sucks. So I'd be very careful here, but he may go back. He might, but I'd be very careful because it's not a position I want to screw around with.
Yeah, no, I had Kittle and Schultz. Schultz was actually relatively expensive. He was like $20 or something like that. And I didn't play him like once the entire season. I wanted to, but I didn't end up playing him. So yeah, those decisions are there for me. I think Adams is the most intriguing one for me. I don't think I can afford to keep him on my roster because I do have McCaffrey, and no matter what happens, and he's the most expensive player in the whole league, I'm keeping him again. I don't care. I'm just going to keep trying and see what happens. I mean, how can you cut that guy even if he's not 100% healthy? You got to do that. So, but let's do this. We'll talk more sort of keepers, but also take a look at the rookies, especially the wide receivers in fantasy. It was not a great year for rookie wide receivers in the NFL this season. In fact, some pretty underachieving performers. Is there a future for some of them? We'll hit on that next. You're watching Fantasy Sports Today on SportsGrid, and we'll be right back after this. Don't go away.
You're not riding with Josh Allen. Yeah. Where have you gone? Don't tell me it's your Philadelphia Eagles, Donnie. Who's the team for you?
You see that Vince Lombardi trophy that sits back here? That's a replica. And that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles have won as recent as 2017. The Buffalo Bills are notorious for making it to the Super Bowl and coming up lame, which they might be able to do. But my question is, can the Buffalo Bills even get to the Super Bowl?
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out and just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
You don't want them to go 13-0 and then lose the first round of the playoffs.
Red.
Yeah, this is their last shot. They don't really have anywhere else to go yet.
Hot take.
By the time I hit, I guess what, Route 33 up here, that ticket's cashing.
Only on SportsGrid. The holidays come with a touch of craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Played a decent schedule. They had maybe 500.
They just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. Time for us to take a look back at the rookies in fantasy football this season. Now, keep in mind, let's definitely not exclude what happens this week in fantasy football because it counts and it's going to count moving into next year too. But crazy to think that the top rookie wide receiver in fantasy ended up being on the Jaguars this season. And we'll get into that here in just a minute. But first, let's start off, George, with the one that was taken at the top. That's Marvin Harrison Jr., who after 2 or 3 games looked like he was going to be living up to all of the hype, and then he simply did not. I think what's going to happen is people who did not have Marvin Harrison Jr., George, next year are going to look at these numbers and be very high on him, not realizing the frustration that it caused the entire season having him. Because 687 yards, 7 touchdowns, assuming, let's say, he gets to 808 touchdowns, those are the kind of numbers that people are going to go, oh, you can build on that next year. But tell that to the guy who drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. this season. They're not going to want to hear it.
Oh, but they will want to hear Malik Neighbors. Oh, God. I'm not buying that at all. I have both, by the way. Harrison was good. He was good in September. I'm sorry, Harrison. They're both first-round picks.
No, in your fantasy league, though.
Neither one was a first-round pick in fantasy.
Well, Harrison was a second-round pick, no?
A rookie wide receiver. Someone took. Wow. God bless you. No. Harrison. They both were on the same time. They both got drafted. What, 4th and 5th overall? Probably round 3, round 4. I'd have to look at my league to be sure. But
I gotta check that.
So I certainly didn't take either one in round 2. There was no way I would ever do that. That'd be nuts. Anyway, Harrison was good for a while. He was. That he always seemed to be missing the connection with Kyler Murray for whatever reason. And for a while he was a bigger red zone threat, then he's not even that anymore. It's been a frustrating season for Harrison as far as Murray. I imagine Murray is gone. With Neighbors, we know what the problem is. All right, it's Drew Lock, it's Tommy DeVito, it's Daniel Jones, it's Tim Boyle. Boyle seemed to bring out the best of them last week. And as someone who's going to have to play Neighbors this week, I really wish that Tim Boyle was a starting quarterback and not Lock, because he seemed to get the best out of him. But Kyler Murray, it's just weird. He's got the better quarterback, yet they've done nothing now for a month. So it's been extremely. I can't even start him, Craig. I've got him in. I think both my finals, and I'm not starting him in either one right now. It's just it shouldn't be that way. It's been a very frustrating season for Harrison. Good for a while, but he fell off the table now the last 6 weeks, and I do not see that changing. I'm not going to start him against Carolina. It's Carolina, and I'm not starting him.
By the way, while you were talking, I briefly perused some of the rankings from the preseason, and Marvin Harrison was drafted in virtually every league late second round, almost, and maybe yours too. You'll have to go back and check, but he was a top 25 consensus pick in every fantasy football draft. So yes, and Malik Neighbors was not. So that was the point that I was trying to make. Okay, so but you made the point that Malik Neighbors would be somebody you would have to think about. I don't think there's anything to think about with him because he was not drafted where Marvin Harrison Jr. was in your league, in your format. No, he did not have a fantastic year, but I think he showed a lot more than Harrison. I mean, George, the guy had 90 receptions on the season. 90s, that's almost double what Harrison had. And he had 901 yards and 3 less touchdowns with a horrible quarterback. How could the quarterbacking be worse with the Giants next season? It can't. So, again, we can disagree on this stuff. I just think that you are underestimating the player.
It cost me a 4th-round pick. They're just sort of forgetting that.
A late second or a third.
And I'm not keeping him either. There's no way I'll keep Harrison. I'm not saying
that you should, but there's a big difference between the 4th, the 3rd, and the 2nd. There is.
Well, actually, the difference could be of 1 pick, depending on where you picked them. So we don't know what the big difference is. 4th and 2nd would be a big difference, not 4th and 3rd. You're not. I said, Neighbors, you're giving up a 4th round. If you just keeping the guy or Harrison, by the way, and it's blind, you don't lose anything. I'm okay with keeping him. Neighbors would cost me a 4th round pick, and I know I'm going to be picking 1st or 2nd in the 4th round. All right, that's the way the league works. That's me top 38 pick. The value isn't there. The value is just not there. I'd be better off keeping other players on my roster that I drafted in round 6, 8, 10, 12.
Okay.
You know,
okay. I don't agree. I don't agree, but it's fine. Listen, if you have to make the decision that works best for you. I personally think that the Giants quarterbacking couldn't have been worse. It's got to get better. If it's only 20% better next season, Malik Neighbors is having 100 catches, over 1,000 yards, and 6 or 7 touchdowns. And there is a ton of value or a 4th round pick for that player. To me, that's, again, my opinion on that. I cannot see him being worse. Now, injuries could happen, of course. And didn't he miss a game too? Anyway, Brian Thomas Jr. of the Jaguars had the best value of all of these wide receivers because he ended up having 8 touchdowns, although last week, I think was his biggest game of the season, if I'm not mistaken. 956 receiving yards on 64 catches. So I have to feel pretty good about this player going into next year as well. Trevor Lawrence or not, new coach or not, he emerged as the number 1 guy.
He did, but a player I don't have in any leagues. I didn't see this coming from him, or not this good, this quick. He did emerge. He's, and I do. I'm a big believer that wide receivers will get better once again. They learn the route trees, they get the comments of the quarterback. You do get better year after year after year. I do believe that with the rookie wide receivers. So, and I think he will. I do worry about, you mentioned earlier, who are Jaguars going to hire? Is it going to be an offensive guru, which I think it has to be to get the best out of Lawrence and the rest of these guys here. So we'll see. But listen, as far as Harrison, Neighbors, and Thomas, I think all the 3 of these guys have bright futures. The one guy I might worry about that we haven't talked about, I don't know if we are going to, would be Odunze at Chicago. All right, he was the guy drafted right. They were debating, Harrison, Odunze, Neighbors, which guy? I do worry about Odunze. His numbers are okay. But I don't know if Caleb Williams is the guy who's going to be the coach there, So I have probably more questions about Odunze than anyone else.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Those are the primary wide receivers to really focus on. We're gonna keep going, Sam, with wide receivers here. I'm sorry, I just got lost there for a minute. Okay, Keon Coleman. Let's talk about him with Buffalo. He was a bust. 23 receptions. 481 yards and 3 touchdowns. He dropped some balls. Xavier Legette turned out to be pretty good, all things considered. He was not on the map at all. 41 receptions, 439 yards. And then Ricky Pearsall, I think next year is a big pick in fantasy. I know he didn't do much this year, but I have a good feeling about him going into next year.
Agreed. There'll be no Debo there next year. And Pearsall is pretty good. Remember, this about the training camp that being shot too, like Pearsall.
All right, we'll take a quick time out, and we'll be back with more next.
On, Donner, and Blitzen. Now, Rudolph, now!
Merry Christmas to all!
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
You know, I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest, and we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this. I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text. Put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, "Hey, I never got the text." And I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. He texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe. Like, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week-to-week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards.
That was
thinking!
But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Happy holidays from all of us here at SportsGrid. It's also time to check in with the Grinch. That is George Kurtz. Of course, he's got some bold predictions for the upcoming week. The Cincinnati Bengals, according to George, will keep it rolling. A couple of running backs will as well. And can the Tampa Bay Buccaneers continue this hot pace on offense? George, what do you got?
Actually, I think the question of all those might be yes. For our bold predictions, right? And by the way, I tried to get the Grinch for the outside of the house, little decoration there. I didn't like what they sent me. I had to send that back here. So first, I think I've been saying this every week now. All right, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I mean, my God, these guys have been fantastic. Now they're going up against Cleveland this week. I know Cleveland did, I guess, decently against Kansas City as far as defensively last week. Listen, that's Kansas City. They don't put up points on the board. Cincinnati at home. I think they sort of get also reinvigorated because, hey, Denver lost. So there's a slither of hope there. They can make the playoffs. I think they light up Cleveland this week. Joe Burrow, at least 2 touchdowns to Jamar Chase. Joe Burrow's throwing 3+. All right, that's almost a given every week. He's throwing 3+, 275 yards plus. That's your floor. It's just nuts what Joe Burrow was doing. If this team had anywhere near close to a winning record, you may be forgetting Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Burrow might be your MVP, and Chase might be in the conversation for Offensive Player of the Year here. Just the years they're having here. T. Higgins likely to go here. They say we're managing his workload here, but I don't know how he's going to play his full amount of snaps anyway. Chase, Burrow, monster games on Sunday. All right, this one's going to hurt. Mike Evans, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they play the Cowboys Sunday night. You'll see me with Gabe probably crying there on In-Game Live as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are beating up the Cowboys here. Evans, I think I want to say 285 yards short of 1,000. They want to get him to 1,000. I don't think he's going to get half that this week, but he's going to get over 100 yards this week, 125 yards from me. And he's getting at least one score again, by the way. He's also getting a touchdown. I think he lights up that Dallas Cowboys secondary. Mayfield's going to have a great game as well, by the way. Tampa Bay should roll here. 30-plus points coming for the Buccaneers against the Cowboys here. Take the over in that game. Lots of good props. If you have a bad Sunday, by the way, that's going to be a great prop night. Take your over props to make up for it here. Next, Josh Jacobs. They play the New Orleans Saints on Monday night. We talked about the Saints earlier in the show, right? Clyde Edwards-Helaire they picked up there because Kamara's out. Olave's been activated. His 21-day window has been opened. Maybe he plays Monday. Maybe he doesn't. I doubt it. But either way, they're a mess. Rattler starting, who cares? Josh Jacobs has looked great of late. I think this is how Green Bay wants to play. Run the ball with. They don't want to be a throwing the ball 40 times a game team. They want to run the ball with Jacobs, control the clock, control the game, and let him do damage, and then throw when they when they can. When those safeties are creeping up, go over the top there. Jacobs at least 80 yards and a touchdown here, and he'll also have at least 25 yards receiving. So what I'm trying to tell you is he's getting at least 100 yards total yards here, and he's getting at least one score. 2 scores wouldn't surprise me at all. Next, Jahmyr Gibbs, Detroit Lions here. I know we heard some reports on Thursday and Friday that maybe Demo is not going to go on IR, that the injury is not as bad as it looked. And maybe it's not, but he's not playing in the regular season. All right. And he's certainly not playing Sunday, which means Gibbs goes bananas. Plus, the Chicago Bears can't stop the run. They can't stop it at all. All right. And I think Detroit wants to get that taste of losing last week out of their mouth. And they want to stop people from complaining, we're not going to be able to go very far because of all these defensive injuries here. I think Gibbs goes completely bananas. 20-plus carries here, over 100 total yards easily, by the way. He's going to get a handful of receptions as well, at least 1 touchdown here, maybe 2. Love Jahmyr Gibbs this week. Next, James Conner. Listen, we're picking against the Carolina Panthers here. Not very good against the run. I know Craig and I have been talking about Kyler Murray and Harrison. James Conner is what's going to fuel this team this week here. Once again, 150-plus yards total for him, ground and air, on the ground and the air. He's getting in the end zone. Another running back that I think, like Jacobs, like Gibbs, I think could get 2 touchdowns this week. James Conner's going to have a massive week for the Arizona Cardinals, and they need him to. All right, I've been complaining all show about Kyler Murray. Passing game hasn't been there, and he's not running. So they need Conner to take care of that damage on the ground here. Conner going to have a big week for the Arizona Cardinals.
All right, there you have it. George's bold predictions for the week. As he mentioned, one note for the Lions, David Montgomery could return at the end of the season. It's not going to help you in fantasy, but maybe in these one-and-done playoff leagues or maybe even in the Super Bowl. And there's also a practice note from late in the week, too. We haven't talked about the Giants running back situation all that much here on the show. Tyrone Tracy missed most of the week of practice. So those of you who have been hanging on to Devin Singletary, maybe there's a chance that he is playable even in daily fantasy or some other format. So these are the kind of things on Sunday morning that Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker will update for you. Make sure you stay with us here on SportsGrid throughout the weekend for the latest in fantasy football. George and I will be back for another hour of the show as we take a look at the daily fantasy landscape next.
The holidays come with a touch of craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Played a decent schedule. They had maybe 500.
They just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
I mean, this is week 16, and you're throwing this guy in the fire. I know the Giants suck, Scotty, but you got that backdrop. Just give it to Bijan 50 times if Penix isn't looking too well.
And I also think Penn State has an easy track. And I think, to be honest with you, Indiana, people are all going to say they should have never been there. And listen, I just wanted to say one last time before that happens that you can all kiss my ass.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
And you're not riding with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Where have you gone? Don't tell me it's your Philadelphia Eagles, Donnie. Who's the team for you?
You see that Vince Lombardi trophy that sits back here? That's a replica. And that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles have won as recent as 2017. The Buffalo Bills are notorious for making it to the Super Bowl and coming up lame, which they might be able to do. But my question is, can the Buffalo Bills even get to the Super Bowl?
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never